What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Marenfeld. I'm Brandon Marenfeld. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 83 of Hockey on the Spot. And not too many games last night, only two. So it's mostly going to be about the updates for this episode. We got quite a few of those. So let's get right into it, starting with some real good news for the Toronto Maple Leafs and something they probably already knew, that forward David Clarkson's 10-game suspension is finally over. That he will be in the roster for their next game, and they have sent forward Josh Leivo back to the Toronto Marlies of the American Hockey League to make room. Nothing against Josh Leivo. He had been a solid player for them in his 10-game call-up, I guess you could say, or trial. But now with Clarkson coming back, they cannot use his services as of right now. But he will be a good player in the NHL one day, and I could totally see him getting called back up again at some point. And what the Leafs are expecting out of Clarkson is that he is going to bring a physical edge to their team, and that he will play in the top six. They're also going to be getting Nikolai Kulemin back at some point soon, so their team is going to be loaded. The Leafs, the true Toronto Maple Leafs team that we've been waiting to see all year long, is going to show up when Clarkey gets back and when Kulemin gets back as well. So, good news for the Toronto Maple Leafs. NHL linesmen have been instructed to stop a fight when the participants opt to remove their helmets prior to swapping blows. It was implemented shortly after the preseason, where it became evident players weren't concerned about the additional 2-minute penalty for removing their helmets to fight, even though the rule was introduced entirely for player safety. The first clear example of this occurred last night in Montreal when linesmen stepped in between Montreal Canadiens forward Travis Moen and Edmonton Oilers forward Luke Gazdic. Not last night, 2 nights ago, seconds after they dumped their helmets to scrap. Both players received 2-minute unsportsmanlike minors rather than fighting majors. Yes, absolutely. That definitely should be a rule implemented like that. Players need to keep their helmets on when they fight, because it's obvious that these grinders are not going to take responsibility for their own actions. So, good move by the referees and the league to make this kind of play. Minnesota Wild defenseman Jonas Brodin suffered a broken cheekbone a couple nights ago and is out indefinitely. That's a big loss for the Minnesota Wild. The Calgary Flames, but one of the other big updates of the day, the Calgary Flames have made a final decision on Sean Monahan. He will be staying with the NHL for the remainder of the season, and that is great to hear because he had been so great through his 9-game trial. He has been probably their best player overall, actually. So he's proving that he's going to be a star in this league. He wants to be a star in this league. No one thought he was going to be ready this year, and let's face it, I really didn't think he was going to be ready either. But he's really showed everyone that he is ready to play. He as of right now, their top line center, and the Flames. They've been good so far this year, so let's see if they can keep the magic rolling. Detroit Red Wings defenseman Nicholas Kronwall was a game-time decision against the Ottawa Senators last night. It had nothing to do with the concussion he suffered last week. During yesterday's morning skate, he took a puck to the mouth and was off to see the dentist. He did play in last night's game against the Ottawa Senators and had an assist in the game, his 6th of the year. We'll talk more about that one, though. The Dallas Stars have placed defenseman Aaron Rome on waivers. The Florida Panthers have placed Tim Thomas on IR with a groin injury. A big loss for the Florida Panthers. This guy just can't seem to stay healthy this year. The New York Islanders have signed defenseman Radek Martinek to a 1-year contract worth $600,000, I should say. He was with the team last year, and I don't see him really being a mainstay in the lineup. I think he's much more of a seventh guy, honestly. But he's a talent, and it's strange because Radek Martinek, I always saw him as somewhat of a talented defenseman, talented shutdown defenseman. The only problem is that he always gets hurt. He cannot stay healthy one day. So that's something the Isles will have to be aware of. Chicago Blackhawks defenseman Mike Koska will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a lower body injury suffered a couple days ago in practice. That's a big loss for the Chicago Blue Line, for sure. It really is. New York Rangers goaltender Henrik Lundqvist is day-to-day with a nagging minor issue and will not play in tonight's game against the Philadelphia Flyers. Cam Talbot will make his NHL debut. Lundqvist tweeted the other day, "Not the start of the season I was looking for, but no looking back. Trying to stay positive, and things will turn around for me/us. Regarding my day-to-day injury, been dealing with it for 2 weeks now. 2 weeks now was a good time to try and get back to 100%. Last few days it's been getting better with treatment and exercise." That could be a big explanation as to why Henrik Lundqvist's game has been a little bit off to start the season for the first 7 games. So hopefully he can get those issues resolved, and then hopefully he can come back being the Henrik Lundqvist we all know and love. We all know and love. New Jersey Devils have made a statement that Corey Schneider is scheduled to make his 3rd straight start tonight when they host the Vancouver Canucks. So has the NHL's all-time winningest goaltender become the backup? Brodeur says yes. Yes, quote-unquote, "I think so. I think he's in the net now to stay. I don't see that it's going to change anytime soon. I'll be ready if it does. We have to try and win some games somehow. This is what Coach Pete DeBoer feels is the best opportunity to be successful. Having him in net, that's fine. If we win, everybody is happy. Even though I don't play, it's more enjoyable to be around." I think at this point in Marty Brodeur's career, I think the message that he's sending is that, he knows he's older now. He knows he's not the same Marty Brodeur that we had seen for so many years. The guy who was the goaltender who was going to single-handedly change games. That Brodeur is gone. I'm sure a lot of people who are not New Jersey Devil fans necessarily are very happy about that. But let's face it, you can't deny that Brodeur may just be the greatest goaltender of all time, as far as the regular season goes, that is. Playoffs, obviously, a bit of a different story. But overall, I was never really a big Marty Brodeur fan growing up, but I can't really deny that he probably is the greatest goaltender of all time. Anyway, moving on. Los Angeles Kings coach Daryl Sutter will try defenseman Alec Martinez on the left wing. Why? Sutter says sometimes someone has to play left wing every time he's back checking when we should have been skating backwards. So that's a real interesting move. A defenseman moving up to left wing. For Alec Martinez, that will probably mean they'll dress 7 defensemen. That would be interesting. Martinez, I always saw Martinez as a pretty talented puck mover. I don't know. I think he's a very talented puck mover. He has skill, Alec Martinez, and it's a real interesting move to put him up at forward rather than on defense. So we'll see how that works out. The Florida Panthers have announced a new promotion. If the Panthers win, single-game ticket buyers will get free tickets to the next home game. The promotion ends December 23rd, but as long as the Panthers keep winning at home, there is no limit to the number of free games and single-game ticket buyers can receive. Very interesting promotion. Very, very interesting promotion indeed. And that is all the updates. Actually, no, it isn't. It is not all the updates. Washington Capitals defenseman Mike Green, one of the team's top defensemen, was benched during Wednesday's close game against the Winnipeg Jets. Not Wednesday, Tuesday's close game against the Winnipeg Jets that eventually went to a shootout. Green explains, quote-unquote, I honestly had a bad day. Nothing was working for me. I wasn't even upset. I just had nothing. My legs wouldn't go. My hands, my vision, everything was off. The puck was bobbling. It was just one of those nights, and I didn't feel that anything I was going to do was going to be beneficial. So, very interesting statement by Mike Green. And you don't hear guys who get benched often say that kind of stuff. They often try to swallow up their pride and say that they should not have been benched. So Mike Green, very bold move, very bold statement, and a very honest statement as well. If he feels he had a bad game, it's one of those things you got to go along with. And last but not least, the Pittsburgh Penguins have announced that rookie Olli Maatta will stick with the team for the rest of the 2013-14 NHL season. That is great to hear. This guy is going to be a star in the National Hockey League, Olli Maatta. I really think he is going to be a star. So, with all that being said, we do have another update, but we're going to wait to talk about it until we talk about one of the games. Now let's get into the games. Only two last night. Starting with the Ottawa Senators and the Detroit Red Wings. In Detroit, one of the most talked about games of the night, Daniel Alfredsson, the greatest player to ever wear an Ottawa Senators uniform, would play for the Detroit Red Wings that night against his former team. Against the only team he's ever known. Very memorable night. Obviously, very emotional night for him, but not the same as it's going to be when they play in Ottawa. And unfortunately for Alfredsson, his first game against his former team did not go the way he wanted. The Ottawa Senators not only beat the Detroit Red Wings, but clobbered them by a final score of 6-1. Ottawa Senators goals being scored by Eric Gryba, his first of the year, assisted by Mika Zibanejad, his first point of the year, in his first game of the year, remembering he got called up yesterday, a couple days ago, and Eric Condra. Then Jason Spezza would get a power play goal. He and Bobby Ryan would both have 2-goal performances, assisted by Chris Phillips and Erik Karlsson. Then Bobby Ryan would score the first of his 2 goals on the power play, assisted by Joe Corvo and Kyle Turris. Then Jason Spezza would score his second goal, assisted by Erik Karlsson and Mark Mathot. 2 assists on the night for Erik Karlsson. Then Jared Cowan would get his second of the year, assisted by Zach Smith. And then Bobby Ryan would get his second of the game, assisted by Clark MacArthur and Kyle Turris. So, 2 assists on the night for Kyle Turris as well. And Craig Anderson, brilliant in goal, as the Red Wings did outshoot the Sens. 31 saves on 32 shots and .969 save percentage. Real good night for Craig Anderson. For the Detroit Red Wings, their only goal coming on the power play, Todd Bertuzzi would be the goal scorer, assisted by Henrik Zetterberg and Nicholas Kronwall. I mentioned he got his 6th assist of the year, being a game-time decision. The Red Wings also, of course, without defenseman Jonathan Ericsson. They were without defenseman Jonathan Ericsson. Brian Lashoff would play in his place. Jimmy Howard did start the game, and he did not play well. Just 5 saves on just 8 shots, a .625 save percentage. It was instantly pulled for Jonas Gustafsson, and he didn't help out the cause. 17 saves on 20 shots, .850 save percentage. So not a good night all around for the Detroit Red Wings. So major congratulations to the Ottawa Senators. Not the way Daniel Alfredsson wanted to have it play out. He was just lucky to not have been a minus in the game. So I'm sure it will be even more memorable, more emotional when the Wings take on the Sens in Ottawa. That will be a very important game, that first meeting in Ottawa. So congratulations to the Ottawa Senators. And the other game from last night's action, the Boston Bruins and the Buffalo Sabres, a rivalry game in Buffalo. Boston Bruins also coming up with a dominant win by a final score of 5-2. All Northeastern teams, all Atlantic Division teams playing last night. For the Boston Bruins, Milan Lucic and Torrey Krug both lead the way with 2-goal performances. Milan Lucic, first goal, assisted by Jerome McGinley and David Krejci. The second one for Milan Lucic being assisted by Jerome McGinley only. Then Dougie Hamilton would get up on the board, his second of the year, assisted by Brad Marchand and Carl Soderberg. Then Torrey Krug would get his first of the game, assisted by Riley Smith and Carl Soderberg. And then his second would come on the power play, assisted by David Krejci and Milan Lucic. So an assist to go along with 2 goals for Milan Lucic. He was the best player on the ice overall. Chad Johnson would at long last be getting his first start of the year, with the Bruins having a back-to-back situation. Former New York Ranger and Phoenix Coyote prospect, he was brilliant. And for Chad Johnson, and obviously something for him to remember, his first NHL start. Congratulations to him on his first win in a Boston Bruins sweater. He's only had 3 NHL wins previously, 1 with the Rangers, 2 with the Coyotes. Wearing Tim Thomas's old number 30. He didn't face much though, 14 saves on 16 shots and .875 save percentage. So he was solid. He was real solid in his first NHL win. For the Buffalo Sabres, their goals being scored by Cody Hodgson on the power play, assisted by Thomas Vanek and Marcus Foligno, his first assist of the year. He had 2 assists in the game. And then Nikita Zadorov, the Buffalo's second first-round pick from this year, gets his first NHL goal, assisted by Steve Ott and Marcus Foligno, his second assist of the game. But for Nikita Zadorov, congratulations to him on a huge assist. Ryan Miller, not a great performance for him. 29 saves on 34 shots and .853 save percentage. A night for him to forget for sure. Quite a few guys though, but in the game, 5:49 into the third. Lots of penalties going on in the game by Boston Bruins defenseman Adam McQuaid and Buffalo Sabres left winger John Scott. McQuaid had more penalty minutes. He had 17 minutes in the game. He had 17 minutes in the game. He had an extra 2-minute instigator. John Scott would have 15 minutes in the game. However, despite the fact that McQuaid had more minutes, John Scott was the one making the dirtier play with that dirty hit to the head of forward Louis Eriksson. They lose a great forward, a good top-scoring winger in Louis Eriksson during the game. John Scott will have an in-person hearing. John Scott has an in-person hearing with the NHL for his hit to the head on Bruins forward Louis Eriksson. Via Bob McKenzie, Boston head coach Claude Julien said, he did his job. He's there to do 2 things, to fight and to hurt. He did both of those things. Buffalo head coach Ron Ralston would not comment on the play, but Scott has played 7 games this season and has 0 points while averaging 5 minutes a game. Big player, too. John Scott, number 32, who's undrafted, 6'8", 259 pounds, 31 years of age, native of Edmonton, Alberta. Only 1 NHL goal in his career, only 4 assists in his career. Former member of the Minnesota Wild, Chicago Blackhawks, and New York Rangers. Began his career as a defenseman, but then moved up to forward. This is a guy who has been called out by Mike Milbury. He was definitely called out, and he did make a couple of points. Obviously, the league now wonders if NHL coaches should be held partially responsible where an incident could have been avoidable. Should Buffalo Sabres coach Ron Ralston be punished for icing a quote-unquote goon at a crucial moment and rewarding him with more ice time. That's obviously, Mike Milbury made his comments on that and really bashed out John Scott, and he really made some good points. Let's face it, a player who's not going to score and is only going to be in this league to fight and to hurt people, that doesn't belong in the NHL. That's not what the NHL is all about. So for John Scott, definitely no business being in the league if something like that is going to happen. If that is his intention, to hurt people. I do not approve of this. I'm sure John Scott's going to find himself having a nice long suspension for this. Anyway, though, congratulations to the Boston Bruins on a huge win, and congrats to Chad Johnson for his first win of the year and his first start of the year. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of the video, and what better way to end it than with this day in hockey history from October 24th. In 1988, on that day in 1988, Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders, Canadian native, would announce his retirement in only 31 years due to a bad back. He is considered as one of the best ice hockey players in the history of the game. He spent his whole NHL career with the New York Islanders, and in the first 9 seasons out of his 10 seasons, Bossy scored more than 50 goals. This is still an NHL record in most consecutive 50-plus goal seasons. We recall that Wayne Gretzky scored more than 50 goals 9 times in his whole career. Mike Bossy won 4 Stanley Cups with the New York Islanders in seasons 1979-80, 1980-81, 1981-82, and 1982-83, as well as going to the finals with them in 1983-84 and losing in 5 games to the Edmonton Oilers. So Mike Bossy, obviously a huge time player in this league when he was going strong as a star. And that is going to do it, folks. That'll do it for episode 83 of Hockey on the Spot. This has been Hockey on the Spot with Brandon Barenfeld. I'm Brandon Barenfeld. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thank you and have a great day.